Welcome back to Co-Work Radio. I'm Jane Walker-Wood.
And I'm Catherine Raymock here. Go ahead.
Sorry. And we're here with UCSB professor and prolific business author John Greathouse. If you want to ask him some business questions, go to our website at coworkradio.com or email askjohn@coworkradio.com. And you can listen to John on our website or iTunes, iHeart, YouTube. How are you doing, John?
Great.
Good. Hey, last week you were talking about a subject where you were encouraging somebody to go back to their landlord and renegotiate a lease because of the times that we find ourselves in now, and really encouraging that. And you brought up a term called long ball, playing long ball. And I wondered if you had any other examples of how that might work for somebody.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, maybe some of them didn't hear last week's excerpt. So long ball is taking as it sounds like, a very long view of a negotiation. So what I'm going to do if I'm playing long ball is I'm going to try to find something that you think is unlikely and that costs you nothing. And I'll just say, oh, by the way, and almost like I'll throw it in at the end, like, oh, by the way, can I have this? And you'll scratch your head and you'll go, yeah, I don't care. And you'll give it to me. And I'll give you a couple examples. So Dick Lester was the director of the Beatles movie Hard Day's Night. And everyone thought the Beatles were going to last 6 months. It was like, they were like the biggest, the latest boy band. Nobody thought they had staying power. And Dick said when he was negotiating his contract, he said, you know what? I agree with you guys. These guys aren't going to last. I would like to have the rights revert to me personally for this film in 10 years. So he ended up owns to this day. His family owns Hard Day's Night. So when you all the reissues, VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. They did a theatrical release a couple different times. All of that money goes in his pocket.
Did anybody ever question him on that? Did he really believe that, or do you know?
I think he really believed it.
This is interesting what you're bringing up about rights, because I know somebody who had a movie made 10 years ago and gave away all my long-term rental rights. At the time, there was no such thing as HBO and Apple TV.
Yes.
So how would you advise
So I have another example. I have a perfect example
I went
for
and
that.
looked at the contract the other day, and I went, oh.
And folks that are listening to this, we didn't set that up. This is I didn't know she was going to talk about that. So the other another example I have is Edgar Rice Burroughs. So Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote Tarzan, wrote a whole bunch of great stories. He was approached to put Tarzan on Broadway. And at the last minute of the negotiations, he said they originally wanted to own the theatrical rights to Tarzan, and he said, you know what, I'm going to give you the live stage rights, but I'm going to own everything that might come after that. Movies were just starting. So to your point about
when
DVD,
he said everything, he didn't even specify movies, because who would have known?
That was the thing. He carved out things that I can't define today. I own them. And so that allowed him to own that whole Tarzan franchise in the 30s with the, Weissmuller and all these, movie stars that were Tarzan. He could own the TV show.
Video games going
everything.
forward.
So his family, obviously, he's been gone for a while, obviously, but his family got the TV rights to Tarzan and the games and all that stuff. That's long ball. So he could have just said, "Oh yeah, sure, do the play."
Well, you've got to be a futuristic thinker, because who would imagine that there'd be video games back then?
And when there's things like that, people will give it to you more readily. And I'll give you one more.
Because it's worthless, they think.
They think it's worth. I'll give you one more quick example. So, everyone knows about the American Basketball Association, right? The ABA. They had the red, white, and blue ball in the '70s. They had sort of goofy things that were going on there. There was two brothers that owned the St. Louis team. So when they merged the ABA teams into the NBA, they told St. Louis, we don't want you guys. The Salinas brothers. And the Salinas brothers were adamant. Like, they wanted the St. Louis Spirits to be in the NBA. And they said, look, we're not going to do it. Like, forget it. And so there was another team, the Colonels. The Kentucky Colonels took a one-time payout of about $4 million. I think it was $3.5 million. They just took the one-time payout and walked away. Salinas brothers go, no, here's what we want you to do. Only give us a couple $1 million, but we want a percent of the TV rights for the ABA teams that are going into the NBA. We want it as if we were in the NBA. So our team is not going to be in the NBA. We hear you. You're not going to let us. But we want TV rights as if we would be, and we want them in perpetuity. They got that. Ended up being worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The estimate is it's almost $1 billion. They settled it about a year ago now. People are going to Google this and get the whole story. About a year ago, the M.B.A. finally said, enough. We're paying you guys a fortune every year for this team that doesn't exist. And so they did a payout. They did a one-time payout of a huge sum of money.
I'm guessing that you are a great negotiator. If I had something to negotiate, I'd send you out. But were you always is negotiating a skill that you need to learn?
It's scary.
Yeah.
When I was 12 years old, I had a company with my brother-in-law. He
What?
was 16.
What was it?
It was sportsman baseball cards.
Oh.
So we traveled up and down the East Coast.
Gosh.
Isn't it ridiculous?
No, it's great.
When I think about it, it's just I was a 12-year-old kid standing there negotiating with grown men. They would look at my brother-in-law. He wasn't my brother-in-law at the time. He was only 16, but they would look at him like, why am I talking to this kid? Right? So to me, it was just a natural state of being.
And maintained well, they're still worth a fortune. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, Pawn Stars.
Oh, yeah.
Well, do you know what people collect that has almost no value? And that's the Playboy, because apparently so many men have them in pristine condition. Yeah, there was a guy, and he had, like 50 years, and he was trying to sell them at the pawn shop.
And they're worthless.
It's worthless.
We'll take your word for it. We're coming over and checking under your mattress. No, but back actually to, so are there, can people learn how to negotiate? Is that part of what you teach?
I do actually. Mm-hmm. I do that in my sales class, and I'm actually toying with the idea of doing a startup boot camp, which will be open to Santa Barbara as we get closer.
Oh, please tell us when that happens.
Talk about it on the radio. I think it's a learned. Listen, you can have that inclination, the lack of fear that I had as a 12-year-old. That's hard to learn, but you could certainly learn how to get comfortable in that skin. And what I say to entrepreneurs is, you need to do 3 things to be a successful entrepreneur. My humble opinion: be able to sell, you need to be able to network, and you need to be able to negotiate. If you can't do those 3 things, that's okay, but somebody on your team has to be able to do them. Mm-hmm. Don't forgo those 3 things. You will not succeed.
And if they don't have one of the negotiators,
find somebody who does.
They can call you, and you can step in.
Or they can go to boot camp. Yeah.
Or go to my boot camp.
Do you still have baseball cards?
So I don't know if the listeners care to hear this, but the last fire that we had, not the one in Montecito, we had evacuated and taken those cards 3 times, and there were some really valuable. Wow. I think it would have been a loss to the hobby to lose some of those cards, because there's some really unique things. And so I talked to my brother-in-law, and I said, dude, we're going to lose this collection. It's going to go. I'm getting nervous. And so we sold a lot at auction. You know
what's interesting when you evacuate, and I've been doing a lot of that since I've lived in Montecito, is what you pack in that car.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Isn't it true?
The first thing, and because I know some people, and they're packing their photo albums. I pack my tile collection, which weighs so much. Well, of course, the 3 dogs go in there first, which is most of the
you made with your own hands, so it's important
I
to
have
you.
Tiles going back to the 12th century, and they.
Ooh, you want to save those?
It's really heavy, though.
But you probably looked at it like I did. This would be a loss to the to the industry, to the people that collect.
And I've been collecting them since I was in my 20s.
Right.
Which is just months
last
ago.
year.
Yeah.
I was last year. All right. Hey, thank you for joining us. We'll have more questions for you. And if you want your question read on the air, please go to coworkradio.com. You're listening to KZSB 1290 AM. John Greathouse, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Yep.